Thanks for joining us today for 5 ways to supercharge AP automation with Omri Mor, CEO of Routable, which is an AP automation solution built for NetSuite and available in the NetSuite ecosystem. This is brought to you by Business Solution Partners, and we're excited to have you on our educational program today. My name is Craig Cook. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Business Solution Partners, and I will be your host. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to make a formal introduction to Omri, and we're going to get kicked off with the educational portion of our session. But before that, let's quickly take a look at our agenda. We're in the housekeeping and introductions portion right now. I'll give us some notes on participation. And then we're going to shift our gears and talk about how AP automation actually works. We'll look at some key signs that you might need AP automation in your organization. We'll discuss 5 ways you can supercharge your AP with automation. We'll discuss a little customer spotlight and then open it up to your questions. It's now my pleasure to turn this webinar over to Omri for the meat and potatoes portion of this content as we look at 5 ways to supercharge AP with automation. Omri, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Craig. I really appreciate it. It's good to be back, and I'm excited to have this conversation. So the goal for today is to talk about how to supercharge AP with automation. And what we're going to go through, is Craig mentioned, is how do you know that you need AP automation? How do you know that it actually works? 5 ways to actually step into AP automation, a quick customer showcase, and some Q&A. At a high level, wanted to introduce Routable before we continue here. We are an AP automation platform, and our goal is to help scale and move forward with AP automation as much as possible. We're built for NetSuite, Intact, QuickBooks, and Xero. One thing to note, we have the fastest two-way sync with NetSuite in the market, and we have really great accuracy. 99.8% of our bills are able to sync over to NetSuite with no issues. We have the ability to not only just do regular bill pay, but we also help with mass payouts with a CSV upload and an API integration. We work with both base currency and multi-currency with NetSuite. We do support the NetSuite One World multi-entity configuration. We have enterprise-grade approval rules to making ecosystem route better. We are really focused on helping you use AI-powered invoice capture with OCR to scrape documents, have payouts to over 200 countries, and we do work with custom segments and custom fields with NetSuite. Moving forward here, talking about some benefits. The goal is to give customers 25% less time on reconciliation, 80% less time on tedious tasks, and then to also reduce the overall cost of moving money. So let's talk about what is AP automation, and we'll get into why you should do it. AP automation is the concept of taking, I'd say, the procure to pay process and automating a bunch of small steps along the way to reduce the amount of time to, I'd say, code, approve, pay, reconcile, onboard vendors, manage vendors, and so forth. What's really important here is that one of the things that you should qualify is how many bill payments vendors are you working with in order to qualify if you should actually invest in it. So why you should automate. I think at a high level, what we typically notice as companies mature, especially using the NetSuite ecosystem, one of the most important things is that they have to enter more data, route more approvals. Their bills get more complex. For example, with purchase orders, they add more custom fields and custom segments. And at the end of the day, one of the things that you should really lean into is that. So what workflows are ripe for automations? So we'll start on the vendor side. If you think about it with vendor onboarding, one of the things that you can do in the automation ecosystem is not only enter a vendor into NetSuite, but programmatically and automatically collect their tax form, whether that's a W-9 and a W-8, and collect their payment methods in real time. So right now, as we all have done, creating a vendor in NetSuite can be manual, but you can let the vendor enter in this information, and that information can be synced back to NetSuite in real time. On the invoice processing side, where automation really comes through and shines is the the invoice ingestion side. On the reconciliation side, you're looking to cut down time by making sure that you are auto matching bill payment records compared to your bank feed. Obviously, you want to sync data back and forth to NetSuite. And then on bulk payments as well, there's a lot of opportunity to um, bulk approve, bulk pay, bulk notify vendors, and so forth. Um, and what are signs that you may need AP automation? One, large payment volumes. So if you're processing more than 500 bill payments per month, I think it's the starting of a conversation. We have customers that range anywhere from 100 bill payments a month to tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of bill payments per month. Two, lack of visibility into invoice processing. I think one of the most important things is that when you are stepping into the concept of AP automation, you want to be able to create more visibility, not for yourself, but for everybody in every department about where the bill is, what changes have been made, what edits need to be made, when are we going to pay the bill, has the bill payment been released, and so forth. Inefficiencies due to manual work. A lot of what we do in accounts payable is manual, tedious work that needs to be correct. So, for example, ways you can automate vendor onboarding is you can have a system that collects tax form information and validates an EIN or an SSN in real time rather than just collecting it and then entering it and so forth. And at the same time, if there are any inefficiencies in the bill coding side, you can make sure to programmatically collect that information based on the invoice and process it. Moreover, you want to make vendors happy. On the making vendors happy side, the more you can inform them of strategic information about their payment and their arrival of payments, the easier things can be. So if you can automate that messaging, that is fantastic. And then as well, costly and slow international payments. One of the things that we've seen a lot is that international payments take the most time, both to book in your general ledger, but also to send, to communicate, to calculate the rates, and so forth. So where we see a lot of automation in domestic bill payments, we see even more need for automation on the international side. So talking about making it a reality, we're going to get into here now into the 5 ways to supercharge AP with automation. First is invoice capture. So one of the things that you're going to want to do is when you receive a bill, regardless of what subsidiary it's sent to or currency it's sent with, you're going to want to be able to capture the vendor name, the contacts, the invoice details, and the line items. But moreover, you're also going to want to supercharge the data that is coming on NetSuite. So for example, you want to have a system that programmatically remembers the class, the location, the GL account that is associated with each line item. And you want to make that very simple. If there's a purchase order on the bill, you want to pull that information as well. So invoice capture is a really great tool to starting the process of of AP automation, because at the end of the day, what you're starting with is the entry of the process, which is, should we pay this? Is this the correct bill? And can we get all the information off the bill in real time? The next thing is you really want to find a solution that integrates really well with NetSuite. You want to find something that has a two-way sync with NetSuite that mirrors your NetSuite instance. That means that if you add 20 GL accounts to your chart of accounts, you want that data reflected in real time. If you add a location, you want that location added. And if you're adding a custom field or a custom segment or making a change to your amortization schedules, you want to make sure that's there. You also want to make sure that you don't have to hire an additional person in your company in order to manage this integration, right? Ideally, you're choosing a tool like Routable that is programmatic. And then you also want to make sure that you're picking something that has a very customizable approval process, as well as multi-entity support as your business scales. On the approval side, I think one of the most important things is you want to pick a system that allows you to use any field in NetSuite that is on the bill form or in a line item to route approvals. So what I mean by that, if you have the project field, if you have custom segments, if you use class, you want to be able to use that as a rule. And you want to be able to also preset those rules so you can do multi-departmental approval, multi-vendor approval, and so forth, and make the process a lot easier, allowing you to always have an audit trail of who's reviewing the bills, who's approving it, and so forth. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the more you can automate vendor onboarding, the easier it gets. We've worked with industries such as real estate industry, where you might have a vendor that starts out as a 1099 vendor. Maybe they get married, they change their legal name. Maybe you have to collect 2 to 3 W-9s from the same vendor in the same year. We want to make sure that you are enhancing your ability to collect this data and reducing the amount of downtime you have entering this data. And then moreover, that we're reducing your fraud risk. So also providing you with the ability to review the data that the vendors are giving you, like TIN, OFAC screening, legal name, addresses, and before you're filing it into the IRS for 1099s, if you do need to do so. And last but not least, automating bulk payments and reconciling them. Whether or not you need to send 10 bill payments in a week or 1,000, I think the big question is, how do I do so? So Routable and AP automation softwares in general should be able to flex with your bill payment volume. We work with a lot of nonprofits, for example, that might have a low amount of bill payments during most months, but once in a blue moon need to remit 2,000 payments in 1 week. So you would need to have a system that is flexible with you. You need to have a system that has really, really good audit logs on money movement. And you need to have a system that can match the data that is on the bank feed reflected to the data that you have in NetSuite, right? Reconciliation is all about transparency. And the more that you can have proof of funds reporting, the easier this gets. Now, flipping through here, we wanted to kind of talk through a customer showcase where we have had really great success speaking with the customer about their pain point, bringing them over to Routable, and helping them scale and automate. We were able to partner with Mothership. Mothership is in the logistic ecosystem. They do short haul freight, and they are really focused on last mile delivery. They work nationwide to get freight moving faster and better, and they really needed to migrate to Routable in order to get a better integration with NetSuite, but also automate. So they were looking for a payout solution and an AP solution that can scale with their growing business, and scale was really the big part of here. So for them, when they came over from their legacy accounts payable solution, they were really concerned about, can we grow? Can they scale? Will the data syncing to NetSuite ever slow down? And we made sure to really work with them to gain confidence within our ecosystem before we could move forward. We wanted to also highlight to them that we can support any field in NetSuite. And we also wanted to show our extensibility into scale with our CSV upload process, our ability to sync bills from Routable to NetSuite and from NetSuite to Routable, and then, of course, our API for more complex needs. The solution was really fun. What we did with them is we understood what they needed, and we understood also that they leverage an EDI for receiving bills, and we worked with them to implement Routable in 2 weeks. but then also scale because they have thousands and thousands of bill payments per month. We also worked with them to learn better how they filter, search, and decide which bills to process. And we were able to actually build a better filtering feature functionality with them to help them make decisions of which of the 3,000 plus bills that they need to process should be remitted today. Um, we gave them the most advanced platform with the best sync, but we also gave them functionality that allowed each role between finance, accounting, finance operations, and engineering to partner and tackle this together. Overall, we're really excited to partner with Mothership because we think that they are truly pushing what it means to be great at AP automation. And with that, I will conclude the part of the screen sharing side of the presentation, and we can dive into Q&A. We had 2 questions come in here, which I really appreciated. So thank you, Amy and Victor. I think we talked about the key benefits of implementing AP automation. Moreover, I would say this, one of the things that I didn't call out is internal communication. We were able to really reduce the amount of questions that go around both for a vendor and for your internal organization through AP automation, because you want to have a system that is recording every single status and every single change along the way and is communicating with a vendor, for example, that their money will arrive by Friday at 6 in the morning. The more that you can provide people with information and not worry about the access to the data. Of course, you'll need good permissioning, security, and so forth. The easier you'll see that you're able to process more bills. Victor, we covered a couple of tasks or processes where with AP that can be automated. I really think about it as vendor onboarding is really critical, as I mentioned previously, as well as invoice capture. Invoice capture is a really big part, and then routing approvals, which is a really big part of it. And then how does AP automation integrate with an existing accounting or ERP? So Amy, thanks for asking that as well. If you are a NetSuite customer, we are a NetSuite partner, and we've been a NetSuite partner for a long time. The data syncs over in real time. So I think that what we can do is dive in deeper over a demo if you'd like to set one up. And really importantly, we will be able to show you how the data talks to NetSuite in real time. Because I think that at the end of the day, if you can't sync the data to your ERP, it becomes more and more and more complicated to manage AP and so forth. You got
We
it.
got a couple more questions that have been tossed around. I'd love to run them by you.
Thank you.
And before we go there, just say thanks again for your engagement today and for talking to our audience about this really important topic, which I think is saving companies time and money and effort and gray hairs, right? Figuring out how they can automate some of these processes and concentrate on more important aspects of the business that
Yeah.
take our attention, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you break down AP, it feels like a supply chain, right? I think that, what I like to call accountants and controllers are firefighters because every month they have to close their books. There's a week and a half there. Every month they have to prep for some new process, right? You have your 1099 season, you have an audit season, you have close for the year, you have a tax season. So every quarter, business quarter of the year, a finance person has to do their regular job plus this. And then comes AP. And AP is tedious. AP is monotonous. AP is about details. So the more that you can invest in removing that work and also democratizing accounts payable. And what I mean by democratizing is saying, can I give all department heads access to an AP ecosystem where they can look at this in real time? Can I do that without increasing my cost of licenses, right? Because I think that at the end of the day, sometimes people say, well, I need 30 approvers, but 30 approvers could be very expensive.
Right.
What if that's just free, right? So the more the information you can make sure that is distributed while ensuring that your bank feed is up to date and your ERP is up to date, the easier this process becomes. But Craig, let's get into these questions.
Yeah, I mean, one of them here is like, you, Omri, are obviously one of the differentiators for Routable, right? You've been a smart guy, a great leader in this category, this fintech category, and you've done some innovative things with your organization. But what really makes Routable stand out compared to some of the other vendors that are out there? Because look, AP automation is not a
I
it's not an
appreciate that question.
uncrowded space, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna first of all start with our sync to NetSuite. I think that one of the things that we discovered when we interview 25 to 50 customers before we ship a feature. And one of the most important things that you want to trust is that the data in NetSuite and the data in Routable is always the same. It's a critical piece because the second the data is not the same, it's the time to say, well, my Friday is not going to end at 4. My Friday is going to end at 7 because I have to go manually update NetSuite for 3 hours. You never want to be in that position. So first of all, it's our sync. We have competitors where in order to update your GL accounts, you have to export data out of NetSuite into a CSV file and upload it into your ecosystem. You never want to do that. In Routable, it's a real-time change. You add 3 GL accounts on one side, we receive that change. You add 10 vendors, we receive that change. You add 10 vendors on Routable, we push it to NetSuite. So that sync is going to be a really, really critical part. Second, it's going to be money movement. I think one of the biggest things that we have seen is that folks come to us. I'll give you an example. 2 days ago, a prospect came to us and said, Omri, I'm using this ERP and I need to send FedEx priority checks. And those checks need to have 20 pages attached. Now, think about that. Flexibility is important because, well, their biggest pain point is this FedEx priority check, but they also have international payments. And we have the fastest international payments in the market, 1 to 3 days guaranteed anywhere in the world. We also have anywhere from a 4-day bank transfer over ACH to an instant bank transfer, right? But we want to be flexible with the payment options that we provide you. And then three, I think outside of just how awesome we are to work with, is our customer support. And I really want to emphasize that because you need a partner that is proactive rather than reactive in accounts payable. If a payment fails due to an invalid account routing number, if a payment fails due to a stop payment and so forth, you need a support team that is working with you, notifying you before you find out on your own. You don't want the vendor emailing you saying what went wrong. You want Routable emailing you before you even knew anything happened, saying, Craig, we noticed that this vendor gave you invalid credentials. This payment was paused in flight. How would you like to correct it? Right? So you're not only getting software with Routable, you're also getting service, which I think is a really critical part of this. We know some of our competitors might take 2 weeks to respond to you. We have really great SLAs. And if you partner with us, we can respond to you in real time, within an hour, within 4 hours. You'll choose your SLA, but we're going to be above and beyond to make sure that the user experience is there, that the implementation process is fantastic, and that you can actually validate that the data between NetSuite and Routable is talking in real time. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, it sounds to me as a business leader like you're helping to mitigate my business risk simply by ensuring that I'm operating on the right data, that there are stop gaps in case, something in the process breaks down, right? So you're kind of creating a safety net for me with this package as well, right?
Yeah, and on that note, recently, in the past several years, we've helped our customers with the W9 and W8 collection process. But this past year, we introduced the ability to do vendor risk checks, which is actually saying, hey, let's not only collect the W9 and the W8, but let's send that data to the IRS, validate that the TIN is real, check OFAC screenings and other watch list, and send it back to you. So that way you can make a decision. Not only am I going to onboard this vendor, but I can make my December decision today, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And I can make sure that I'm not incurring any additional risk or fines from the IRS. So risk, data processing, audit trails, getting prepped for an audit. Those are all things that we do in the background and I think are really critical.
Awesome. Well, I think we covered a whole bunch of other stuff. International payments. Yes, we definitely work with international payments. We have some of the best in the business. You know, for any ERP customer,
Mhm.
we're going to want to know integration. How deeply are you integrated? How quickly can we get up and running?
Yep.
And I think highlighting the built for NetSuite capabilities and the kind of native integration that you have with Oracle NetSuite is a really important piece here because we're talking about rapid implementations and rapid ROI on your effort, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think that at the end of the day, the way I like to look at it is you need to build a system where you can try before you buy. One of the things that we offer to our customers is to try Routable's sandbox environment, a demo, on the NetSuite sandbox environment. It's really, really important. You don't want a salesperson telling you, yes, we can do that. Accountants want to see their data mimicked. And I think that's one of the most important things. They want to see the PDF pushing from Routable to NetSuite and being stored under the files section under the communication tab, right? So when we're saying we're built for NetSuite, we're going deep here, right? We want to make sure that you feel like, while we're not a solution consultant, it feels like our team is such experts in NetSuite that we can go toe to toe with the experts that you're hiring to help you manage and optimize your NetSuite instance, which is so critical. We did get one from Amy here. The question is, are there any regulatory compliance considerations to keep in mind when implementing AP automation? I'd say yes. I think that first and foremost, you probably want to work with your IT and compliance department to make sure that the solution you're picking is adhering to all the lovely regulations that we have here in the United States or internationally if you operate there. I think two, it really depends if you are public. There are some Sarbanes-Oxley requirements on, I'd say, data processing controls that you have to implement. So I think it's really important to not only step into this with the question of, are there considerations, but are there considerations specific for your department, for your industry, and for your company stage and size? Three, how you handle secure and sensitive information is very important. We're talking about storing PII, we're talking about storing tax forms, we're talking about storing payment methods. All of that data is sensitive. So I do think it's very critical to at least inquire about this as you're stepping into. And one of the biggest things here is controls. So while you can also automate, you need to be able to choose who can have access to data, who can modify data, who can edit vendor data, bill data, and so forth. So automating without controls doesn't work. That's why approval rules are really important. That's why being able to customize roles and permissions is really important. Because at the end of the day, you want to automate and you want to be able to process more without losing your compliance, right? You can't make that trade-off. You can't go faster and be less compliant. So Amy, thank you. That is a really, really great question.
Yeah, this is where I'll plug, your solution provider, your compliance consultant is an invaluable resource when making these considerations about your tech stack, about what you can and can't deploy, how you do it internationally, in town. And as Omri said, his team has this solution provider perspective, right? They want to assess what the impact is on your business and on your systems when they're doing an implementation so that you understand it, they understand it, and everybody's on the same page. And I think your solution provider kind of comes at it from that same perspective, and your compliance consultant as well, or in-house compliance. So really, all of these teams need to kind of be involved and be informed on these processes that change our approach, especially in those regulated industries. I think it's all about that collaborative approach that everybody knows what's going on and is tackling it together, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think that especially in this industry, you don't need to just buy software. You should find a partner, right? You should find a partner that when you say, hey, we are adding 3 more subsidiaries to our NetSuite setup and we're going to start using custom segments, how can we change that? The more your AP provider and your AP automation provider can flow with the changes of your businesses and morph to your needs, the better you're set up for success.
If anybody wants to follow up with you around your solution, how are we doing that today?
We try to keep it pretty simple. I like to share my email. Some people say don't do that, you'll get too much stuff. But if you have any questions, send it to omri@routable.com. I just shared it here in the chat. You can also come to our website and request a demo at any given time. But point being is we're ready to chat. We like complex NetSuite setups. We like complex questions. If you feel like you have a unique business need, let us know. Most of the time, we find out that we can just solve it through good, diligent questions.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to call it a day on this particular webinar. As always, we got some, good educational content as we go through the slides and some really good looks as to, how we automate AP and why we automate AP, and then the deeper conversation with Routable CEO Omri Mor really kind of hope puts the context to this topic, right? So we thank you for joining us today. We hope you got a lot out of it because this is we love to have these types of conversations. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Omri, for your input today. And we look forward to seeing you next time when Business Solution Partners does another great webinar on another great NetSuite topic. All right.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Craig. Happy Friday.
Same to you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.